Hey, welcome everybody to the Resilient Living Podcast. Today, I've got my friend Rick Julien on with us. He's going to be talking about how he's gone from 0 to 100 at his homestead, what he's doing, and how he's done that very quickly. So, welcome, Rick. Welcome, Jared.
Good evening.
It looks like we've got some people already watching. Sometimes we take a minute at this point for Jared to throw up an item and talk about it as we let people roll in. Jared, did you bring anything tonight?
I did.
Okay.
So, in reference to Snowmageddon and the snowpocalypse, having good freeze-dried food. If you got stuck at home and you didn't have food, this is the one that we sell in the shop, ReadyWise. I do recommend doing your research on whatever company you go with. There's a lot of them out there. They're not all created equal. They do not have all the same shelf lives. They do not have the same caloric density, and they don't have the same costs. So weigh that accordingly and figure out what works best for you. ReadyWise was the one that ended up having the best of those in my mind. So that's the one I went with. So come by the shop and I can get you set up with all kinds of different meals.
Awesome.
Including gluten-free.
Nice. Yeah, I could use that. Yeah, as always, Jared's always doing the legwork to make sure the stuff is correct and best for various different measures. So, well, I think we've got everybody watching who's going to be at this point.
It is an Ibanez. It is an AS53. So it's the ES335 just shrunk down just slightly.
That is Riggs. Rick, you know him as well.
Hi, Riggs.
So we are going to talk about how you've, built up your homestead quickly and some of the things that you're doing because you're doing some really cool stuff. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of what got you into homesteading and why you're doing what you do?
Okay. I don't know, probably 5 years ago, it looked like the economy wasn't doing very well, and there was just a lot of disorder in society. And we lived in Chattanooga and in the city, and had gunshots going off outside our house and hoodlums in the middle of the night. And then one Sunday, a guy climbed in my car when I stopped to get some cash at a cash machine. And we just had enough of the kind of woke environment in Chattanooga and thought it'd be a lot safer out in the country. And so neither my wife or I had really ever done anything like this before. So it's kind of a city boy gone to the country at 68 years old and had a blank sheet of paper in terms of the property we had.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about, generically what you had to work with property wise to get started.
Okay, the home we purchased was a newly built home on 5 acres, and it's a narrow lot in the scheme of things, probably 120 feet wide by forever long.
Sure.
And the area with essentially no trees was, I don't know, an acre and a half or something. I mean, the house sitting on it, and then out behind the house where it was just clay, and being it's Wilson County, had lots of cedar. There were cedar trees around, and so you had the shale or the rock and clay, and that's what it was.
Yeah. And would you say, what do you have under cultivation acreage wise? Do you have kind of a?
I would guess an acre. I mean, I would guess at most. I mean, you've seen it. It's probably less than an acre.
Yeah. I'd guess half an acre, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And, I just built gardens as I had time and made sense.
Yeah. Okay. So where did you start? What was your first thought? And then have you adjusted your thought since then?
Okay. Good question. My wife is a visual person, and she likes things to look good. And it's like, and she was fully on board with doing this. And it was like, if I'm going to live out in the country, I want it to look good. So
Sure.
the first thing we needed to work on was the patio area off the back deck, to have it pleasant, so that if we got stuck out here, we had a nice place to be. So with that, I did two things. I hired. I got introduced somehow to a consultant out of Knoxville area who came over and helped me with some of the homestead thinking. And then we hired like a landscape architect to build, because we had no sidewalks, and so we got hardscape. We built a hardscape patio and a hardscape walkways out to the front and that kind of stuff. But using both of their ideas, we were able to have the nice patio area that we could entertain on, or we could enjoy, and then design the gardens to be as close to the house as possible. So as I originally talked about stuff, he was going, no, you want to be able to walk to things, and not have things so far away that you just don't do it, or you would.
Yeah.
And so that was a big deal of thinking about how do I get some high value garden area, and that's where I built some raised beds, 4x8, with the cedar. We have Grant Cedar Mill somewhat near us, so I went and got cedar, and we built 1 foot high raised beds and fenced that in to protect it from deer and rabbits and such.
Sure.
Before I started building other ones outside of that.
Okay, cool. So you started with one smaller garden area and some aesthetics and landscaping, which personally I think is overlooked a lot of times in design and in people thinking, because they're thinking I want to produce food.
Right.
And so sometimes the aesthetics get overlooked, and they're important. Yeah, to design.
You want to be happy in your yard and in your in your life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that's an interesting kind of point, is that I would say over the last 2 years out working in my gardens, the ability to walk around, or to be on my hands and knees digging in the dirt, and to be able to look around and go, hey, this feels good. It looks good. It's pleasing. And there's a sense of accomplishment, with that. That's quite different than the like white collar stuff I did, flying around and being in audit committees and boardrooms and what have you, to be out there digging in the dirt and being close to making, producing something and adding value back to the world, and through this little property, and proving that if this old guy can go out there and grow all this food, way more than I can eat, and giving it away, and and trying to think about what are some really valuable things that are easy to grow. So like initially there was a lot of sweet potatoes, because those are with the raised beds, just using dirt and compost and hay and cardboard and wood chips, doing the whole no dig garden approach is what I used everywhere. It was easy to plant those items, and then onions too. Lots of onions.
Yeah. So I think you started, I know, using some amount of more conventional fertilizer, at least to get off the ground. And you've switched more towards some other things. Do you want to talk about how you did that switch and how you've kind of managed? You also expanded and contracted a little bit and made some changes as you went. Is there anything you would do different about that, or would you kind of do the same thing largely over again?
That's what you said is true. And, the So if we go back 4.5 years ago, for anybody on here that might remember, there was lots of concern about supply chains and would we even be able to get fertilizer? And I didn't know any better. And plus, I had red clay and rock to work with, and figured, okay, I went out. I still have bags of fertilizer that I bought 4.5 years ago that I'm not using because after a year, I cut the amount of fertilizer I was using probably by 75%. And by year 3, I only used a little bit, and that was for corn that I needed the nitrogen because the corn just wasn't going to grow without it. And, or without it with what I knew. And then this past year, year 4 for me, I used no fertilizer. And so, I think the soil has built up from the wood chips, clean hay, and mushroom compost. I did have a big truck of mushroom compost dumped sometime year 2 or something, and so I've added that to it. I had some compost piles. That takes a lot of work, and I didn't have as much time as maybe I would have liked to build big compost piles. I have that now, and we could talk about that later if you want. But
sure,
yeah. So I kept building. I kept adding gardens. So especially like in the spring and the fall, the spring mostly when I was so anxious to get outside and do something, I would say, "Oh, let's just extend this bed, another 25 feet." I had my brother-in-law had a guy at his office who had a small tractor, a John Deere 125R, I think, a pretty small tractor that he wanted to sell. So I bought his tractor and was then able to use that. I had never driven a tractor. In fact, I traded, if I can say this, I traded a 2021 Corvette C8 convertible for a Silverado when I moved here. And took the money and had never even driven a pickup truck before. So I have this big pickup truck and a tractor. And so that was just kind of a lot of fun getting into that. So just kept extending garden beds and building new ones where it made sense. It was very sunny area. So it was easy to do stuff. And I met with the Wilson County Extension Service guy from University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and he came out and gave me ideas, and we talked about fruit trees. But as I thought about it and did research on fruit trees and was getting ready to order them, I just said, I don't know. I don't have X number of years for these trees to grow. I need to focus on growing food that I can eat in the near term. And again, that was with the mindset that we were going to have supply chain issues and everything. So my focus was on that. But then what I did a lot of fruit or berries. So red raspberries, black raspberries, and blackberries, and did quite a number of those along the property line.
Yeah, I'm a huge, for those who don't know, I'm a huge fan of berries here in Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
And that's because they are literally weeds, so they grow like weeds.
Yep.
They're very expensive. They're high nutrient density.
Yeah.
And you can buy a few of them and propagate them like crazy. So if you're on a budget, you can start small and build it out from there because you can root tip them. They'll sucker, all kinds of things, and they grow in poor soils. So if you're starting with poor soils, they're excellent. Highly acidic, they'll do just fine in highly acidic soils down to semi-basic soils. So most of the soils around here, they'll thrive in.
Yep.
Yeah, and they love wood chips, right? So you pile wood chips on it. It keeps the weeds down, and it does good for the plants, and they spread. So in year 4, I am giving, as Ryan knows, I'm giving a lot of plants away because I just have, the raspberries coming out my ears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love going over to Rick's house because I can just walk along and pick raspberries and eat while I work.
And strawberries in the spring.
Yep, absolutely. So maybe tell us a little bit about, you were talking about expanding beds, and obviously in your main garden, you've got these really beautiful raised bed boxes, but probably your largest production comes from in-ground kind of semi-raised mounded beds. Can you tell us a bit about the process of how you make those beds and expand them?
Okay. So watching a number of YouTubes, as we all would,
That's what we do.
and having to move in, I had a lot of cardboard and a lot of paper that things were wrapped in. So I saved the cardboard, the boxes, and saved the paper, knowing that I would use them in the gardens. And so I would put down the cardboard, water it in, and then dump. I ordered just regular dirt, not landscape dirt, but garden dirt from a place near me, and have them just go dump it. And I would then put dirt, put hay or straw, get clean hay. There's the back of my property has a field that was hayed. The people that owned it, the family that owned all this land, and they sold some of it. The grandson lives kitty corner across the way from me, and he goes back and hays. And so I told him he can just hay back there, and he drops off hay for me when I want it. He'll give me old bales and broken ones, and I put eggs in his mailbox.
Nice.
It's a nice trade-off. That's a great resource too to have.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got fertility growing out of your soil that otherwise is somewhat inaccessible to you. And so for him just to drop off the stuff that he can't use as damaged hay bales or rotten hay bales is perfect.
Yeah. And we, so every year I think it's fair to say every year I add to my raised beds. And I mean, some of them are, I don't know, every bit of 12 inches deep. And I mean, it's in the hay and the wood chips are breaking down. Perfect. And much of it you can just get and dig with your hands. It's really rich, getting to be very rich soil. And my goal was to create a 360 process where I would, with my chickens, I have a pretty big area that I fence my chickens in, and fill that area up with wood chips, 6, 8, 9, 10 inches of wood chips, and the chickens turn it into black gold. And I can take that and put it out of my beds, and then all the sweet potatoes and whatever squash plants, tomato, I can throw all that in with them and feed them, and herbs, lots of herbs all over. I've got, and I plant a lot of herbs just for the chickens, and they then give it back in this black gold compost. And I'm able to put that back in, and it partially feeds the chickens. And that's probably the major thing that I don't have in terms of the whole 360 process, now that I don't really need to use fertilizer, and I've got barrels set up for compost tea and comfrey tea to use as additional fertilizer along with the chickens. And, as I've moved into creating more compost and thinking about being lazy, I've got cattle. I saw it somewhere and I thought it was a great idea. So got cattle panels, 16 foot by whatever it is, 5 foot, 6 foot.
48 inch, I believe. Yeah.
4 foot. And I rounded them. Mm-hmm. And I've got like 6 of those, I think, and they're full of wood chips, hay, grass clippings. I was very fortunate in that one day a guy just pulled in my driveway and said, "Hey, you need anybody to cut your grass?" I mean, I didn't even have a lawnmower when I moved here. Oh, no. And I go, yeah. And so I get charged $60, and I go, I can't buy a lawnmower and keep it maintenance for how many ever times he cuts my grass every year.
Right.
20 times. And I'm doing the math and I'm going, whoa, this is way cheaper than doing it myself. Plus I'm not out there wasting my time cutting grass when I can be growing food.
Yeah. Hey, I want to take a step back for a second and talk a little bit more about your chicken setup and how that integrates with your gardens. Because I don't want to gloss over that. I think it's really cool how you have things set up. And to give people just my like elevator spiel on chemistry and wood chips and chickens is because I don't think I've done this before on the podcast, and if I haven't, it's been a while, or if I have, it's been a while. But what you're looking for with nitrogen, which is what you're going to get from chicken poop, so nitrogen and ammonia, is you want that to bond with carbon. That's going to neutralize the nitrogen, neutralize the ammonia, get rid of the smells, reduce diseases, things like that. When you're dealing with wood or really any carbonaceous growth material, what you need is the end grain. That's that end of the wood chip that gets cut off. That end grain is where everything soaks in. And so you want as much of that as exposed as possible. And wood chips are like the perfect thing because they're literally being chopped across that end grain. And so they're going to absorb all that smell, all that gross. And as they do that, the nitrogen that's being mitigated, all the smells and things are being mitigated by the carbon. It's breaking down the carbon, and the carbon is turning down into is breaking apart, and all that nutrient rich wood is breaking down into its base elements. And so now that can go back onto your garden as a bioavailable. And so that's what Rick's talking about with the chickens, is that, let the chickens do the work for you. And so and chickens want to dig. So if you throw wood chips in there and they poop on them, they're going to dig all that in, and over time make this kind of slow, super rich compost that's going to really benefit your garden. And like Rick said, it lets you be really lazy, which is huge. So you've got that section. Exactly. So you've got the run, where the chickens do that with the wood chips. What's
how many
the other
chickens
part
do you
of
got?
I have 18 hens and a rooster right now. I mean, I started with probably just six hens, and just can't help but keep adding. And then
Yeah.
before a year was out, a fox killed all my chickens, and so I had to start over and built and had a 6-foot fence built around it. I guess a bobcat could jump over it, or a mountain lion, but
Sure.
it'll keep most things out. But having all those wood chips in there has really been great because it's reduced all the mud too. My property gently slopes down, so the water is going to run from the house back into the through the flat area where my gardens and open area is into the wooded area. But it would create mud piles in where the chickens were. So now by filling that up with wood chips, I don't have that issue. And what I think we found is that while I thought it would take a year or year and a half for those wood chips to break down, I mean, they break down within a season. I mean, you got to rake the top layer off, but then underneath that, you've got some really nice soil. And so I don't know, it's probably 32 by 32, kind of a square rectangle. And then in the back, I have a double gate that opens up into what I call a chicken garden. And I took 100-foot, I think it's 100-foot Premier One 4-foot fence. Not electric. I don't electrify it because I just let the grass grow up around it. But I use that to keep the chickens. They can jump over it if they want to, and every once in a while they do. But then out there, I plant herbs and comfrey, and I've got mulberry trees now growing out there, and I've got a nut tree that they like. I think it's hazelnut, and lots of elderberries. Ryan was good enough to give me or trade me a number of elderberry trees. So around the chicken coop with a 6-foot fence, I've now got elderberries growing up, and it provides shade for the chickens and gives them some entertainment jumping up to eat the elderberries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that little chicken garden where you can let them out and you can plant different things so they don't destroy it. It's not bare ground. And you can kind of get different things popping up at different times of the year. And it just gives them something to do that they enjoy as well.
Yeah. And so I've thrown like corn stalks and sunflowers. I like to grow sunflowers to get the seeds for the chickens. I don't really do anything with the sunflower seeds like some might, but I grow them for the chickens. And by keeping the largest heads every year, now at 4 years into it, my sunflowers are 12-foot high, and I just get humongous heads because every year I just keep the very biggest one or two, and I plant those seeds the next year. So 4 years in, I've got really big sunflowers, and then I keep those for the chickens, and I throw the stalks into this chicken garden area, and I've created this big pile in there, and they can play with it, but also I know it'll break down over time. It won't break down as quickly as other compost will, but by planting thyme and rosemary and comfrey, and mince, they'll eat that at different times of the year when they need it. And then also I have it. And what I just found the other day, I didn't know this, but chickweed. One of the chickens was sticking its head out the fence and was eating the chickweed outside the fence. And I go, oh, wow. I'd never really I think it just started growing where it was this year. And so now I just go out and pull handfuls of the chickweed and throw it in, and they just attack it. And in the spring, it's yarrow. Yarrow is the first herb to really come up in the spring in quantity. And they just love that yarrow when I go pick the yarrow and throw it in the coop area.
Yeah, sweet potatoes too. They seem to,
yes.
When you throw those in, they really go for them.
They like the red ones with the white center the most. So they'll go after those the first. And I grow the Tropicino squash, which are the long Italian zucchini squash. I mean, I grow a lot of them because I give those to the chickens. And this past year, I actually had some success with pumpkins, and I just give those to the chickens. And I found a nursery that had pumpkins going bad, and they would just call me, and I would go pick up all their bad pumpkins and just piled them up. And every day I'd give the chickens one, and that worked out well. And I guess another thing I'd say is, at the beginning, if I had to do some things differently, like you asked before, I mean, one thing is if you've got the resources to do it, and I was blessed to have this, but I mean, I got on the wait list for a well to be dug, because I mean, that's sometimes pretty difficult to do, but it took me 5 or 6 months, and I had a well dug. And I would tell people, you've really got to think about where you want the stanchions and pay the extra money to have water run wherever you want it at the beginning. Before you go building stuff, you have to undo.
Right.
And then really think about, if you want to run electricity, where you want that. And so when I had my solar put in, the guy that did that just trenched out to my shed where I had a shed put. And then I said, when he was doing that, I said, could you run this over to the chickens? He said, sure. So he trenched over to the chickens. Of course, he hit my septic line doing that. but he fixed it. So it wasn't no big deal. But I go, oh yeah, I should have told you it was running through there.
My bad.
Yeah. So I mean, those are some things to really, I think to think about, is the water and the electricity and getting it where you want it. And now with the well water, it's essentially free. And I mean, I've used thousands and thousands of dollars worth of water. I mean, I could turn it on and walk away.
Just let it run.
Yeah.
Well, in permaculture, there's things you do in order, and water is the absolute first thing you think about and address on a homestead before you do anything else. Then it's access, then it's infrastructure. So you're right. Water is always the first thing you think about, is how do you get water where you need it? How is water running across the property? where's it going to flood? But water is always the first part of that design and of that systems thinking.
Yeah. Well, and Ryan, as you know, I think if I could go back, knowing what I know now after 4 years, I would do more of the, oh, I lost the word. What is it?
Function stacking.
No, the direct in the water where we wanted, and
oh yeah, like swales or other waterworks.
Yeah, I would design it with swales more so that the water would run into the beds. It's not terrible the way I have it, but I mean I have water that runs off down in down my property that could be running into the raised the no dig gardens now and could be captured there that isn't. But so that's swales is something in directing the water that would certainly be something. But I mean, I was drinking from a fire hose with it was coming in with no knowledge and just kind of having to learn from making mistakes.
Yep.
But I think one of the things you said is access. And so really thinking about, okay, I had a little gravel driveway built out to put a shed, and figuring out, okay, you want the shed close enough to the house, but far enough away and close enough to the gardens and, having to kind of figure some of that out, but then making sure there's room for trucks to come in, whether it's, me with my Silverado dropping off bags of feed for the chickens or buying hay or whatever, or straw. The dry straw is really good for the chickens at this time of year. But also the drill trucks. I mean, these triaxle. I mean, if they're going to come drill for a well, it's a big freaking
yeah.
and then finding somebody to do wood chips. And just got lucky in seeing a truck one day, and I just called the phone number on the truck, and the guy lived reasonable. I mean, he drives by my place doing his work sometimes.
Oh, nice.
So, the deal is I give him $20 and I text him and, hey, I need some more chips. And he just drops them off and I just keep track and I'll see him 3 loads later and give him $60 and he just keeps coming back. Yep.
On that topic, for those who are watching, if you want wood chips, I just got in contact with a guy who he does a really good job keeping his chipper up and running well and making really good chips, which matters. But he works, I think, from like Crossville all the way just about to Nashville. And I told him I can get dump sites wherever he wants. So if you're interested in having a kind of being on a permanent list for him, just email me and I'll get your information on there. So, Rick, something you were thinking or you were talking about that like I've loved as far as working with you is you're always willing to kind of iterate. And I think it's served you really, really well. So you're always willing to go, okay, that thing didn't work quite how I planned. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What do we do next time to make that a little bit better or a little more useful or a little more productive? You're always willing to experiment and actually approach something kind of with that scientific mindset of trial and error. And I think that's incredibly valuable. Can you talk a little bit more about how you approach those things?
Yeah, I think that, because I built a number of above ground gardens, and there's just my wife and I here. And so I had space to try some things. And, I would plant some things here or there and see where they would grow the best. Things like corn where the wind would blow it over and knock them down. And, I finally got to where I said, this is way too much trouble to plant and harvest corn when I can go buy the couple of years. I'm still eating corn from 24 because we're just not big corn eaters. And, I think it's trying those things and then trying some new ideas. Like initially, I didn't even know there was different color sweet potatoes really And so I just grew orange ones the first year. But I mean, I had hundreds of pounds. I mean, it was incredible. I was just giving boxes and boxes of them away. Because that was my goal, was to be helpful to other people and to grow food that I could help people when we had this shortage, which, now we haven't had it yet. But prices have just gone up. So some people appreciate free food. And then the next year I was able to start planting some of the purple and purple white sweet potatoes, figuring out which ones grew best where. Then another big one that I've gotten into is turmeric and ginger. And even the extension service guy, when he came over here, was just like, he was looking at this going, I have never seen turmeric grow here before.
Yeah.
And so I can't even, I know what it was. I was down in the Panhandle one winter, maybe the second winter we were here. We went down there for a little vacation, and at a farmer's market, there was a lady there that had organic turmeric, and she did all kinds of things with turmeric. So I got talking to her and bought some turmeric mama bulbs from her, a dozen of them, and planted them. And then they grew. It worked. I mean, I built a bed specifically for the turmeric after talking to her. And then they start spreading. And so I was then able to take those and add, and the next year I overwintered them in peat moss in the garage. And I got it some of it got too damp and they rotted. So I lost any number of them that were near the bottom of the big pot that I had them in, the big container. So I learned a little bit about damp doesn't mean wet. And the next year, then I had more. And then I said, this is a pain in the butt to dig these all up and overwinter them. And they just take space and worrying about keeping them damp. And so I said, well, how about if I just leave them in the ground and I'll cover them? So I put wood chips and hay on it and threw a tarp over it. And the next year they came up, and because it's at about 50 degrees, they start dying back in the fall.
Yeah, they're leaves, everything above the ground.
Yeah. So the ones that came back very nicely. And then the next year, which would have been for this past growing season, I had some in the ground in the winter of 24 going into 25 that I did not harvest in the fall of 24. So in 25, they had already grown up the 4 or 5 feet that they grow tall. And there would be rhizomes under the ground from the rhizome that I started with. And those plants are the ones that came up first. There's the ones I left in the ground over winter. And they got probably 7 feet tall. They were, I could walk in them and you couldn't see me. And I would suggest that it wasn't like year 1 plus year 2 turmeric equal twice as much. It was like 3 or 4 times as much per plant. So where you started out with one plant, I ended up with a clump that was of plants that were this big from one little piece of turmeric. And just, I mean, I had, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 pounds of turmeric per plant.
It was ridiculous.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I'm not finding it at the moment, but I have pictures of one plant that we pulled out from this fall.
Yeah.
So what are the particular growing environment that obviously you figured out what it takes to flourish? So how's the setup? Like sun, soil?
Full sun. And I would say just, rich soil, soil that's reasonably loose. So the no dig with, I started with the cardboard and dirt. I mean, the same thing, but I think I layered it more in building the one for the turmeric where I did the cardboard, and I'm not sure it makes a heck of a lot of difference whether you do cardboard, hay, chips, dirt, hay, chips, dirt.
Yeah, sure.
And so I think as long as it's reasonably loose, I mean, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to perseverate on it, but I think that's in built it higher than I built other ones to start, because I think I was told it had to be about 9 inches. There had to be about 9 inches above the ground. So the raised bed, I piled it up to do that. And then every year I added, I would leave the turmeric leaves from the plants as they died back in there, put more chips and the chicken compost from the chicken, a layer of that. And so every year I built that up. But so then I learned about, and again, this was orange turmeric. And then I learned about white. This lady I bought it from told me she had some white and blue and green. So she sent me some different color turmeric, and I planted those. And so now I didn't know which was which. And you have different color flowers on the plants. So the beautiful white flowers, and now I've got pink flowers and kind of mauve flowers. And some of the plants have stripes on them, and some of them don't have stripes. They're just green. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And
so that's, I believe, 3 plants.
Right.
Wow.
So I still have, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds of turmeric out in my garage. I've been freeze drying it, and I've sold some to West End Market in Cookeville.
Nice. It freeze dries well?
Yeah, freeze dries really well. Nice. And I've been using it to, I grind it up and make, and then with ginger, I'm growing ginger too. So I freeze dry that, and then I can put those in a coffee grinder and put some pepper in there and all. And so I make, what's it called? The golden milk kind of, so I make an herbal mixture to put in milk or coconut milk or tea.
Yeah, Riggs says they've really been enjoying the white kind that you gave them.
Yeah. And speaking of Riggs, another thing that, especially for us old guys, you've got to find some young people. I've been fortunate enough to be introduced to a high school senior who worked with me until he graduated, and then he went off to East Tennessee State University. And then Ryan came across Riggs, who's been helping me and has been very valuable in getting things done. And I found it can get a tad boring doing it all by yourself. My wife works, and she has a business and has employees in different places, and so I get to spend her money. But so she doesn't really get to work outside much. And so it's been very helpful to have like Riggs over here, because I just get so much more done. I mean, I'm motivated to, if I'm going to pay him, or when Ryan comes to help, I mean, I'm motivated to be out there working with them, and especially like with Ryan, learning from him so I can, hopefully do it myself the next time. So
it forces you to think through what you actually want to do too, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got somebody coming, you're like, I want to maximize my time.
Yeah.
So you have to think through and actually organize in that.
Yeah. And I prepare, as Riggs and Ryan know, I always type up a to-do list, and I think about, like Ryan just said, what do I need to have done given it's going to rain, or it's going to get really hot, or it's going to freeze. And so what are the things I need to get done now? And I'll create a priority list, and we can start at the top and work through it. And I'm just pretty good at kind of organizing things that way, of putting bullet point lists together and organizing it. That's just kind of how I think anyway.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is interesting about what you're doing and how you're doing it is that there's a spectrum that I think of between, I've got a lot of time, but not a lot of money, and I'm bootstrapping it to,
Yeah.
I've got, less time, but more money, or even maybe more time and more money, but less time to do it in. I have less of a, I want to get this done more quickly. And there's this kind of spectrum between those. I started on I've got more time than money, and just kind of grunt labor was okay on my homestead. You were kind of on the other side of that spectrum. Do you want to talk about how you see that, or how you think of that, and how you prioritize? So, because you can throw a lot of good money and have nothing to show for it as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, I know I'm blessed in having that, but also we we thought about that in terms of what we bought and how much we spent for it, and to have the money to have some extra money to get things going, and to be able to buy the berry plants, and also we had a sense of urgency. I mean, we just didn't believe that things, the economy would keep going. Now, I mean, we'd say we've had COVID, and we've got inflation, and now we got what's going on in Minneapolis, and it's not over. But I thought that it would have been, we were in more of a hurry, so I had to spend probably some resources to get some things done quickly, and getting beds built, and getting going out and buying tools, and buying fertilizer, and kind of stockpiling a few things. So I think that's, and I think thinking about, okay, I want to have some food, and what is it that would work, and what is it that is easy to do, or that we would like, or we would eat. And so, sweet potatoes, onions, green beans, tomatoes, peppers. I mean, we're kind of the really high things, I think, on our list. And so there was a lot of focus on getting the beds prepared for those, and figuring out how to do that. In that first year, and getting the berry plants in. And what I basically found is you don't really get much out of the berries in year one. But boy, in year two, if you treat them right, and I don't know if, Ryan, part of where you might have been going with that is, I mean, I had the mindset that this wasn't a one and done, like 1 year and done, and thinking, okay, I'm not getting younger, and I need to do things. I need to, if I'm going to pay money for something or invest in something, it has to be something that will hold up and will make my life easier. And I think it's like the stanchions of running those to different, like right now, I wish I had a stanchion on the other side all of them are kind of from the road on the left side of the property. And I wish I had one on the right side, on the other side of my fenced in garden area, or the chicken area. But, I don't. But so I think it's thinking about what kinds of, so I'm, you wouldn't be running hoses all over. So
Right.
You just think about, what can I do to make my life easier. And as I put the effort into doing the beds right, I would say probably adding more chips, more dirt, more hay, and doing it again in the fall before I tarp them. Thinking, okay, I'm going to tarp these and see if it keeps the soil warmer and lets me start two weeks earlier the next year, in buying the tarps, and what are they called? Silage
Silage, yeah. Silage tarps.
Roll of silage. I mean, that was heavy and expensive. And, I mark it every year. I fold it up and I write on it where it was, where it came from, so I can put it back the next year. I don't know. Is that, and, having the tractor to be efficient about things. And then eventually, I think about this time last year, I was talking to Ryan and saying, "Gosh, I wish I had a greenhouse." And he goes, "Hey, well, I've seen some on YouTube or on Amazon." And so we bought $120 greenhouse on it and ordered on Amazon, and Ryan put it together and followed the directions and said, "Oh, this doesn't work," and he figured out some ways to make it better, and it's still, yeah, there you go. And so,
yeah.
so a year later, it's still standing. It's some of those rolled up things don't stay very well anymore, and but some of the netting is all tore up, but fundamentally works. And we I think that's another thing is like I put these got these black bins you can see on the right hand side there, and I didn't line them up. I put them in different places, and we ended up having to move them all so that we could get 6 of them, I think, inside that greenhouse. But that was a learning lesson that to really think about. Okay, if you've got to cover things for the winter, or you're going to get an early frost or a late frost, and you want, and all you've got is one night of cold weather, and to be able to throw some plastic or something over your bins or your beds, you want them lined up in a way that you can do that easily.
Yep. Yeah, and with that greenhouse, I mean, for $100 to $160, depending on size and type that you want, even if it lasts you a couple of seasons, it's a worthwhile investment if you know what you're doing and what you're using it for. But if you assemble it the way the instructions tell you to, it's going to be in your neighbor's pool the next hard wind.
Yeah. In fact, I had a neighbor saw it. I say neighbor, it's kind of on the other side, a couple big lots, down, and he got one and built it, and it ended up in his pool.
Yeah.
That was what I was referencing. So yeah, because Rick, you've got kind of crazy winds that come through there. You're in a bit of a plains area.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does. And that greenhouse last spring, I mean, I got all kinds of lettuce and herbs. And then as it got hot, the lettuce didn't grow. But I mean, I had lettuce for months, different kind, and kale, I think. And then I planted tomatoes and peppers, and the tomatoes didn't work. I don't think I got anything out of the tomatoes. I don't think I got any tomatoes, but the peppers did really well. And so
now you know what to plant next year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think again, it just comes down to knowing what you're doing to enough of an extent that then you can experiment and iterate from there. And Pack Rabbit, somebody I know and have worked with, great guy. He's wondering if those, or has wondered if those greenhouses are worth even using to get a couple of seasons out of. And the short answer is in most cases you can, if you set them up right. And I've got a couple of videos from Rick's place on how we did that and kind of how it turned out.
Yeah. So far I would say, definitely if you want to extend your season and you want to have some, lettuce that, and I did it in those black bins that are 2 feet or whatever off the ground. So it reduced, it makes it easier so you're not bending over all the time, but also it helps keep it away from rabbits, but it doesn't prevent it, but helps in that way. And, I have carrots, beets growing in there now, and kale, some collard greens. I've never grown collard greens before, but I started those in the fall, and I've got a few. I don't know if they're going to make it or not, but the carrots are fabulous, and the beets are really nice, and especially beet greens. So I've found that onions have done really well in these above ground gardens. I've gotten from Dixondale, the organic onions from Dixondale, and then garlic. Keen, I use Keen garlic, I think is the company name, and I get potatoes and organic potatoes and garlic. And I think about my gardens now as beyond organic because of the quality of what I do with it, and what the seeds or the products I buy, and then the soil not having any chemicals in it. And so that's done really well, and I've expanded over the years. Every year I add more herbs. So thinking about, and I've made some tinctures and some salves, and then I tend to trade a lot for that because one of the things that I found in anybody doing this that produces much in the way of produce is, I mean, it's from 9 to 10 at night in the summer, right after picking strawberries. You pick 5 pounds of strawberries in the morning, and then I'm processing it at night. And so, yeah, I mean, thinking in terms of how you're going to can this or freeze it or dehydrate it or freeze dry, or which pieces or all of them are you going to use. And I've at times gotten overwhelmed and behind, and stuff just goes bad. I mean, I'll have a basket of tomatoes or peppers, and I'll just end up having to give them to the chickens because I just don't get to them in time.
Well, I've benefited from some of that personally with you having stuff sitting around that needs to be processed. I'm like,
take some. Help me out here. Right. Take some of these onions. His girls, Ryan's girls, love the sweet potatoes. So.
Oh yeah, we go through so many, but I mean, it comes back to community again, then, right? Because you've got, whether it's working with somebody like Tatiana or Sherry Stickler, or I'm sure some of our viewers tonight are going to be familiar with these people who do incredible work with herbs, and now they're getting beyond organic herbs from you that are above the production that you can do anything with, but you're producing them. So, it just becomes this really cool synergistic thing that starts to work together amongst the community and for you. And, now you can trade for something else that's valuable, whether it's knowledge or help or, some type of good or service.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I would also say to people is getting connected with a group. So like I'm pretty connected with the Upper Cumberland Mutual Assistance Group, and and Brad then started one in Spencer. Yep. And I've gone there a couple times, and I was involved in Chattanooga before. I got connected down there, and then when I moved up here, Brad invited me come over to Cookeville, and it's that group has made a huge difference, being able to ask questions, and people who've done this before, and the ideas that they have given me. I mean, I wouldn't be, where I am today without, by, having that initial consultant giving me some ideas, so I didn't mess things up too much to start with. And then, connecting with Ryan somewhere along the way, but, and then being able to trade these people and, come up with stuff. Like one of the ladies I was talking to one day when I wanted to make a salve, and I had comfrey. I was going to do comfrey and St. John's wort for pain and neuropathy kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was going, what else could I put on it? And I was talking to her on the phone just before I was getting ready to do it, and she goes, and she goes, I wonder about turmeric. And I go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And so I went out in the freezer and got some of I'd cut up some pieces of green or green and bluish turmeric, not the orange. And I had a bag of it. And so I just threw the bag in with the comfrey and St. John's wort, and multiple people, at least 5 that I know of, have tried it and said that it has taken the pain, their arthritis or whatever it is, away. And so somehow came across, have stumbled on this very, very good salve And so that's got me growing more St. John's wort and, given and like I say, trading turmeric or some of the other herbs. I'm trying to think of one that I bring sherry every year a couple times. What is the name of that one?
Is it skull cap?
Yeah, the skull cap. So
Mhm.
I've been able to, and then she gives me a couple little bottles of skull cap tincture, and but I've been able to bring big bags of it down with the flowers. So I wait for it to flower and cut it down, and it'll grow back twice a year. And the comfrey, I can get 3 cuttings, and if I'm kind of really paying attention, maybe get 4.
Mhm.
But can't get too much comfrey. I just bought some other comfrey, and I didn't need to, but I said, you know what, this will be convenient, and I can get maybe a different variety.
Yeah.
What was Ryan? Do you remember the podcast I saw that on, the guy in Texas? I think it is, that spun off from his parents.
Oh yeah, that would be the permaculture consultant.
Yeah,
William Bond.
yeah. And then his parents they sell comfrey,
Mhm.
if I'm remembering right, piece
Yeah,
of roots.
Billy Bond from Permapastures sells comfrey.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be interesting to get maybe it's a different variety, maybe it's not, but I want to have more comfrey because I want to make the comfrey tea for the
Yep.
fertilizer, and also to feed more of it to the chickens. And then to
So
be
there's
able,
a couple types of comfrey tea that so I want to be clear here, because so there's the FDA never do it, you're gonna get, I don't know, liver cancer or something, comfrey tea, which
Right.
you would drink or ingest, and I actually make that. So far, no liver cancer. But what you're talking about is basically a fermented spray for your garden. So you shove. Do you want to explain it, or do you want me to kind of run it down?
yeah, I mean, there's as far as I know, there's no exact formula, but I go cut the comfrey leaves in the stems, in the flowers, and I cut them back down to an inch above the ground or whatever, and I stuff them in a 50-gallon blue barrel that I have strategically located so that it's closer to where I want to spray, and I fill it up with the plant and fill it with water, pop the top on. And Sherry had told me about a powder that I bought, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but I have some, and sprinkling some of that in, it helps accelerate and give more power to the fertilizer. And then after it bubbles up, and it stinks like the dickens, and then it's ready. And so I'll pull the slimy comfrey out and throw it in the gardens, and then put a pump in there and spray it on the. I made the mistake last year of spraying it on the turmeric plants when they were maybe 4 foot high at the time, and it burned a number of the leaves.
Ooh.
So I had probably used it. Well, first off, I shouldn't have sprayed it on the leaves at that time or at that strength. So you can dilute it. So what I was doing was taking like a 5-gallon bucket and scooping it out of the 50-gallon one, but maybe only filling it halfway, and then fill it with fill it with water somewhere else and pour it on the gardens. And then I got, I guess, smarter about figuring out how to do it with the hose, and being able to spray it, dilute it, and put it on the gardens. So I don't know, Ryan, you probably can add more context to, do you dilute it 2 or 5 times? And I guess a lot just depends.
Yeah, it depends on what you're using it for and how concentrated you made it in the first place, like how many leaves you used to how much water. Typically speaking, if you're going to put it anywhere where it might be getting on leaves, you're going to want to dilute that usually around a 4 or 5 to 1. And then, if you're spraying it directly on the ground, you can usually go straight, but You don't want to overpower it because you can actually kill off microbes because it is a pretty hot fertilizer. So we've got a question here from Little McClanahan Farmer Riggs here, and he was asking about where you can get comfrey. There's actually quite a few answers to this question. You can get it from somebody like a Billy Bond, Permapastures. Another guy more locally is the Lots Project. He's over near Camden. He's a great guy and would love having you support him. And then, you're just down the street from the farm that I work at a lot, and we've got something called True Comfrey. So there's a few different Bocking varieties, Bocking 4 and 14, which are hybrids. And I've got a True Comfrey, which will reproduce by seed, and the others are sterile. But there's benefits to each, and if you want some, I'm happy to give you the True Comfrey. And if you want the other type, you can either get it from Rick or buy it from somebody else as well. So
yeah, I was going to say you can just get some for me. We'll dig up one of my plants and cut it up. Because the roots, you just need 2 inches of the root, and you've got feet of root under one plant.
Yep. So we've got a question here. Do you grow ginger the same way you grow turmeric?
The answer is yes. The one thing, the ginger's more temperamental. My experience is that you've got to plant ginger later, or it'll freeze, or it'll get burnt back by cold weather, and you have to start it inside. Like I ordered 10 pounds of organic Hawaiian ginger. I ordered 5 pounds last year, I think, or maybe no, I ordered 10, and then this year I ordered 20 pounds, and I'll get it here in a week or two, and as soon as I get it, I'll lay it out for a day or two, and then I'll break it into pieces that have the nubs on them, whatever that's called, to sprout, and then I use coconut core and the aluminum basting pans like you see in the grocery store or whatever, and get as deep a one as you can. And I put it on heat mats and turn the heat mat on 85 and out on it in a enclosed patio area. And I'll put a bunch of those out there and start the ginger. And in February, as soon as I can, the ginger, they pick it at the end of December, and they have to let it sit for a month, essentially cure, before they ship it out. And so then I have to wait for the ground to warm up to where the nights are above 50 is what I would say, thereabouts to plant the ginger. And the other thing I learned for both ginger and turmeric is to plant them further apart than what you might read or see on a YouTube, where they might say 9 inches, and I would suggest planting them a foot apart, because they expand under the ground, and you want room to walk between them, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I'm now at the point where, because I'd gotten these different color, and especially the white turmeric is proven to be very powerful. One of the mutual assistance buddies, I've given him the white turmeric, and he's got a lot of arthritis and what have you, and so he made a tincture out of it, and he said it really really helped. And but anyway, I've now got rows that this row is blue. The blue turmeric is just beautiful, but I only got a little bit of it last year, so I left a couple plants in the ground to see if I can get more this year. And then I planted a row of blue and a row of green and a couple rows of orange. And I've got light orange, and maybe the light orange is actually yellow, I'm not sure. And then the dark orange. So I've planted. So now I know this row, what each row is, as opposed to it being all mixed together. And I have to look at the leaves and see the stripes on them or the different colors of the flowers to sort out maybe what it is. Hopefully that answered the question on the ginger, but basically it's the same. I plant them in the same place, plant them next to each other. In fact, some of my ginger that did the best, I planted next to or between the turmeric. So the turmeric grows much taller than the ginger, at least here in Tennessee. I don't know what it does in Hawaii, but or in the tropics. But the turmeric plant shades the ginger. The ginger is, from what I've read and understood, it is more subject to that kind of afternoon sun, not liking the afternoon sun as much. But
So what you're saying is plant the ginger on the east side of the turmeric so it gets shaded in the afternoon.
mhm. So yeah, if the sun's going to the west, and which for me, my gardens, the sun is beating down on it. Yeah, I'll plant the. I left a couple feet of space between some turmeric plants, and then I planted the ginger in down 2 rows in between the turmeric.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah,
just
it's cool. Cool how you can use layering and think about where the solar aspect is to
yeah.
adjust.
And another neat thing I did last year is I planted pumpkins and watermelon in between them, because the rhizomes are under the ground. So I planted the plants that would grow crazy wild, for 30, 40 feet. I just planted those, and they ran between the turmeric and the ginger. And, I had pumpkins hanging off of the turmeric plants. And
Cool. Jared, do you have any questions for Rick?
No, this has been great. I'm loving this. I've got lots of ideas for my own gardening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Rick, one of the things that you've focused on a little more than I have is plants, and especially a lot of annuals and things where personally I've put more time into animals and perennials, which pays off in one sense and in one way. But when your calculus is different and your diet is different, you're gonna set things up differently. And I've loved to see how you're doing that as opposed to how that plays out on my property with my goals.
yeah, and I mean, a lot depends on, like, for me, I really like eating healthy food. And for months I'm eating lettuce, and I mean, I have, frozen and freeze dried every day I'm using my dehydrated or freeze dried peppers or frozen peppers and freeze dried onions. Um, and during the spring, especially, the big salads, with all kinds of different lettuces, um, or radishes or carrots and beets and the beet greens. I love the beet greens with the onions. So they come in about the same time. And so it's great making big pots of that and then freezing it for the winter.
So as you say, eating healthy and things, it makes me think about, you put a pretty big initial investment into what you're doing. And if you're measured in food costs saved from the store, you're not going to get that money back most likely.
Nah, I don't think I'll get it back in my lifetime.
No, but I bring that up to say, like, as far as quality of life, health, quality of food, how would you rate that investment?
Oh, that's a great question. And and being city folk and coming out here and, not being around farmers or homesteaders before, other than, some of the interaction I had at monthly meetings in Chattanooga for a couple months before we moved, I got to appreciate so much more the lifestyle and the freedom, or the having a reason to get up in the morning, especially being retired, semi-retired, to be able to do that, and to be out in the fresh air and the sunshine. And, I would just lose track of time. And my wife would be out there yelling at me to get me to drink water, because I would just, forget, and I needed to, and then, you just get the schedule going to where you get up at when the sun's starting to come up, and, you quit at 9:30 or 10 when it gets too hot. And then again, I can't go out at night because I've got to be out there. I've got to be out there when the sun's starting to go down at 6 o'clock and work till 9 or until it's dark. But yeah, it's I've said to many of the folks in the mutual assistance group and all that about, I don't understand how farmers that go to farmers markets can make any money. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, how much time I spend in buying seeds or, and then you can start saving seeds. And I mean, from a budget standpoint, I mean, there's things you can do that are different than what I did. Like with the comfrey, I didn't need to buy the comfrey I just bought. I could, so I did because I wanted to try something, a new one. Sure. I mean, I could have just pulled up a plant I had and cut the pieces up and like I've done over the last few years. So I've got comfrey growing in lots of different places. I'm just going to have more now. Except for avocados, I have little reason to go to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm. That's a good reason, though.
And I mean, I buy from folks in the group, whether it's cows or chickens or pigs, so I have that in my freezer. But almost all the vegetables and fruit, I mean, I'm literally still eating 2024 berries every day.
Yeah,
for lunch.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So I had a freezer full of 25. I mean, I've posted out there. I need to sell some or trade it. I mean, strawberries are going to be in a few months, and I've got 100 pounds of strawberries from last year in my freezer.
Oh, goodness.
It's a real problem to have.
Yeah.
And now
you're running out of freezer space.
Right.
Yeah. But, some of that is like, doing this. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is where you get to a point, if you do it right, you get to a point where you have a little more time and you can start thinking about what's important in terms of whether it's helping other people or whatever. But Monty Fritz is running for governor in Tennessee this year, and he's very, conservative, Christian, constitutionalist. And I said, I need to do something. I'm called to help and to make a difference. And I've seen this lifestyle and saying where these globalists are going are going to destroy our ability to do this and take away our rights and liberties and freedoms. And so I've been able to, volunteer in his campaign and get real active this year. And I think he's going to resonate with this community and I think veterans and others who want more freedom. And so I think in the homestead and the putting the property together in a way that with this regenerative thinking, it's going to take care of itself. And I'm not going to have to spend time fertilizing and even watering as much, right, Ryan? It should, these raised beds with the wood chips and all are going to hold the moisture. And I figured out which plants we like, what things we like to eat the most, so I can focus on just growing those instead of growing some things that I know won't do as well or we don't use as much, or, instead of having 20 tomato plants, I know I can have 10 and it'll provide plenty.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes paring down to what is appropriate, you'll actually get better production, higher quality output.
And more spacing between the plants to get more air, between them. When they're little, you go, I can plant them close together, and then they get big and they're climbing all over each other.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So this was, when you mentioned Monty Fritz, this was kind of what came to mind from me as well, because I remember seeing, we have a mutual friend, Bradley Bleedsdale, who's got a pretty significant raw milk operation. And the first time I saw something from Monty Fritz, it was him guzzling some raw milk from Bradley. So
yeah, Brad gave him a half a gallon, and he goes, "Oh, can I just drink this?" And he says, "Yeah, but only if we can take pictures." And he says,
Yep. So Back Reddit had another question here. Do you have a biggest unexpected challenge that you've come across with your planning?
Wow, that is a great question. You know, I would say that it's the amount of time, the effort in processing, growing it. It it happens, but then all of a sudden you've got all these tomatoes or all these
You
peppers
got to
or
deal
all
with
these
all that.
strawberries, and you're just going. Uh, I mean, you run out of daylight, and then like I say, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night, and you know the family may want you to do something else, and you're going. I've got all these beautiful strawberries. I'm not, you know, I did all this work to get them here. I'm not gonna.
Right.
I've gotta, you know, clean them and cut the tops off and freeze them or freeze dry them or
Do something with them.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, processing and preservation are a whole nother end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can grow plenty of food,
Sure.
right? But
keep it?
You got to
Can
do
you
something
useful it?
with it.
Yeah. So I think unexpected, that I think that's a great question and way to ask it is I think the unexpected part was just the effort and the thinking about where to put stuff. And my house has an encapsulated crawl space, which is heated and cooled, and it's good in some ways,
Sure.
but I can't leave things down there once the heat kicks on.
Sure.
I mean, so it just gets too warm.
Yep.
To save the onions or potatoes or
You have
whatever.
to dig a root cellar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he can't. It's limestone.
It's limestone.
Like-
Never mind.
Like no less than a foot underground, it seems like. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, you do above ground and you bury it.
Yeah. Yeah.
there you go. That works. Well, Rick, I've really appreciated having you on, hearing a bit more about your story, how you got started. I knew a good chunk of it, but it's always good to be reminded, and hopefully everybody at home has enjoyed your story as well.
Yeah. And you know, if any questions come up, people can get a hold of me, and I'll be glad to help somebody out, or you know, think about it, and you know, kick things around. But so I'm able to share hopefully back with people. I still ask questions about. I asked today about somebody about oh, well, chickens. Do I have to bring the chickens fresh water? You know, because it's even though I have submersible heat pump and what have you, the cups freeze and the nipples freeze, and will they eat the snow? Is that going to be sufficient? So that was a question I had today, and you know, I was told that while they will eat the snow, it's really good for them to have the water. So I have to cart a bucket of water out, you know, to them, which is, you know, not an issue, but it's kind of part of what you do with a farm with animals, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so much easier than, I mean, I don't have goats and sheep and all that. I think if I was younger, I would have probably had part of the property fenced in and had goats or something, but it just wasn't, it wasn't something I thought I could do at my age.
Yeah. Well, knowing your limits is valuable.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that Ryan and I've talked about is pulling some of the stuff I was doing further out in my gardens, you know, 4 years into it, going into year 5, saying, okay, I've got a lot of stuff freeze dried. I've got a lot of stuff dehydrated. I want to work on this campaign this year. So how can I pull some things closer
Sure.
to the house and be more thoughtful about doing things? Like I had a lot of asparagus and dug up some of the asparagus because it's just not, it takes up a lot of time and room, and it's great for a few weeks, but it just wasn't kind of worth the space it was taking.
Sure.
The juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all of our questions that we have for Rick, and we've covered a lot of ground tonight. So that was great. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Rick, you don't really have a thing to sell, or you're just doing this out of the kindness of your heart, right? Or
Yeah,
do
well,
do
I
you
mean,
have something?
if somebody wants some beyond organic black raspberries, red raspberries, or strawberries or blackberries, I probably would sell some from, so I can restock my freezer with this year's crop. I mean,
There you
last year was just, I mean, as Ryan and Riggs know, I mean, the black raspberries were absolutely crazy. I mean, I just had so many, and the blackberries also, but the black raspberries just went nuts. I mean, they didn't do anything for the first 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, I was pretty jealous.
Yeah, and who knows what? Maybe I won't get any this year.
So if you want some beyond organic berries, reach out
right.
to Rick.
Yeah.
Or if you need to, reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with him. But
Yeah.
otherwise, Rick doesn't have anything to sell you. He is just here to be a good person.
Yeah.
So, Jared, do you want to give us the spiel, what you do, how people can find you?
Sure. So I am Jared Wilson. Resilient Living is my business. We have a little store halfway between Sparta and Spencer, right on 111, corner Hodges Ferry Road. You can find us online at resilientliving.com. You can follow us on all the social medias, Resilient, some iteration of Resilient Living. They're running across on the ticker on the bottom of the screen. Basically, I sell everything from freeze-dried foods to knives to camping gear, a whole selection of books covering this very topic of, what to grow, where to grow, when to grow it, animals, survival, all kinds of stuff. Hopefully soon I'll have my FFL, so we'll be doing firearms and gunsmithing. So that's me.
Cool. Well, my name's Ryan Steva. I am the homestead consultant at thehomesteadconsultant.com. I also do a YouTube channel. So a lot of the things we're talking about today, I've actually got videos on. And I'm even working on putting together, it takes time to edit, but a video that Rick and I did a while ago on his ginger and how he grows it. So if you want to find my stuff, go there. I help people set up homesteads and hopefully avoid large mistakes or, fix things that are already problematic or whatever else. So thank you all for being here. And as a reminder, we meet and do this just about every Tuesday at 7 live. So, put it on your calendar, join us. We love all the interaction we got tonight. And Jared just set up a stream on, what is it? Spotify. Thank you. Yep. Yes. On Spotify. And we're working on, I think, getting that distributed. But
so I'm working from the very back to the front. So this is, starting from the very first podcast, we'll be going incrementally weekly out. So we'll have all the episodes.
Yep. So if you're driving or gardening or doing something, you can actually listen to all the past episodes as well as these upcoming episodes, rather than having to sit there in front of a screen and watch us. So, and they're always pretty digestible as an audio podcast. So thanks everybody for being here. Thank you again, Rick, for joining us.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow and do all the fun things.
Okay.
Click the buttons.
That's right. Click all the buttons, all of them. All right. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.